The stars shimmered like diamonds scattered across a black velvet sky. Daniel Carter stood on the observation deck of his ship, staring out at the endless expanse of space. He had seen countless worlds during his years as a diplomat, but none felt as daunting as Haven 7. This remote colony nestled on the edge of known space was a powder keg waiting to explode, and Daniel's job was to make sure it didn't. His mission was clear: negotiate peace between Earth's Central Council and the people of Haven 7. For decades, rumors had swirled about the colony harboring remnants of the Barbarian tribes, warlike groups that once wreaked havoc across the galaxy. If these rumors were true, then Haven 7 posed a significant threat to interstellar stability. But if they weren't, Daniel knew he could forge an alliance that might strengthen humanity's fragile unity. As the ship approached the planet, Daniel felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The colony below looked unremarkable from orbit, a patchwork of domes and structures surrounded by barren wasteland. Yet appearances could be deceiving. Haven 7 wasn't just another outpost. It was a symbol of resistance against Earth's authority. Its leader, Kayla Stone, had built her reputation on defying outsiders who tried to meddle in her affairs. Rachel Moore, the ship's communications officer, entered the observation deck. She was young, barely into her 20s, with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. Rachel carried a datapad in one hand, its screen glowing faintly in the dim light. "Sir," she said softly, "we'll be landing soon." Daniel turned to face her. "Any updates?" Rachel hesitated before responding. "I've been monitoring transmissions from the surface. There's unusual activity. Some of their signals are encrypted, and others seem to come from ships, not registered to Haven 7. Daniel frowned. Encrypted messages weren't uncommon, but unregistered ships? That raised red flags. Could they belong to the Barbarians? "It's possible," Rachel admitted. "But I can't confirm anything. Yet." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Keep digging. Let me know if you find anything concrete." "Yes, sir." Rachel left the room, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts. He trusted her instincts. She had a knack for spotting patterns others missed. But he also knew paranoia could cloud judgment. Still, the timing of this mission couldn't have been worse. Tensions between Earth and its outer colonies were already high, and any hint of barbarian involvement would escalate things quickly. When the ship touched down on Haven 7, Daniel stepped onto the dusty ground with a mix of apprehension and determination. A small delegation awaited him, led by Kayla Stone herself. She was taller than he expected, with piercing green eyes and a commanding presence. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight braid, emphasizing her angular features. Beside her stood two guards armed with plasma rifles, their expressions unreadable, behind mirrored visors. "Welcome to Haven 7, Kayla said, her voice steady but cool. "You've traveled far, Mr. Carter." "Indeed," Daniel replied, offering a polite smile. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Kayla gestured toward a nearby transport vehicle. "We'll discuss terms inside. Follow me." Right. To the colony's central hub was silent, save for the hum of the engine. Daniel studied Kayla carefully, trying to gauge her intentions. She seemed calm, almost too calm, which made him uneasy. Was she hiding something? Or was she simply confident in her position? Once they arrived, Kayla led Daniel into a large chamber filled with holographic displays and bustling workers. Maps of Haven 7 and surrounding sectors floated in midair, showing resource distribution and defense networks. It was clear Kayla ran a tight operation. "This is our command center," she explained, motioning for Daniel to take a seat. "Now, tell me why Earth has sent you here." Daniel leaned forward, choosing his words carefully. "As you know, recent events have strained relations between Earth and its outer colonies. My government believes open dialogue is essential to maintaining peace." Kayla arched an eyebrow. "Peace or control?" "Cooperation benefits everyone," Daniel countered smoothly. "We're not here to dictate terms. We want to understand your needs and concerns." Kayla studied him for a moment before responding. "Very well. Then let's start with this. We don't trust Earth. Your promises mean nothing unless backed by action. Daniel nodded. Understood. What actions would earn your trust? Before Kayla could answer, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Workers scrambled to their stations, shouting orders over the din. What's happening? Daniel demanded, rising from his chair. Kayla's expression hardened. Intruders. Someone's breached our perimeter. She barked commands to her team, sending them to secure key locations. Turning back to Daniel, she added, Stay close. If you value your life, don't wander off. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Reports poured in of unidentified vessels entering Haven 7's airspace. These weren't ordinary scouts. They moved with precision, targeting critical infrastructure. Panic spread among the colonists, many of whom fled to underground shelters. Daniel followed Kayla as she rushed to assess the damage. Along the way, they encountered Rachel, who had joined a group of engineers working to reinforce defenses. Sir, Rachel exclaimed, relief washing over her face. Are you okay? For now, Daniel replied grimly. What do we know? It's the Barbarians, Rachel whispered urgently. Their signatures match old records. They're testing us. Kayla overheard the exchange and glared at Daniel. So much for peaceful negotiations. Did you bring them here? No, Daniel protested. I swear I had no idea. Whether Kayla believed him or not, there was no time to argue. The Barbarians launched their first wave of attacks, striking power grids and communication arrays. Explosions rocked the colony, sending plumes of smoke billowing into the air. Chaos reigned as civilians fled for cover. Amidst the turmoil, Daniel realized the stakes had changed. This wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. It was about survival. If he wanted to prevent all-out war, he needed to prove his worth to Kayla and her people. But earning their trust wouldn't be easy, especially when every second brought them closer to disaster. As the battle raged on, Daniel found himself standing shoulder to shoulder with Kayla, Rachel, and a handful of determined fighters. Together, they prepared to face whatever came next, knowing full well that peace had collapsed and only war could provide answers. The attack on Haven 7 continued to escalate. Fires burned across the colony, their orange glow lighting up the night sky like a twisted sunrise. Daniel Carter stood in the middle of the chaos, his heart pounding as he watched colonists scramble for safety. He had seen battles before, on screens and reports, but nothing could have prepared him for the raw terror of being caught in the middle of one. Kayla Stone was shouting orders, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. She moved with purpose, directing her people to fortify defenses and evacuate civilians. Though she had accused Daniel of bringing the Barbarians to their doorstep, she didn't hesitate to include him in her plans. For now, survival outweighed suspicion. Rachel, Kayla called out, spotting the young communications officer nearby. Get me a status update on our shields. Rachel nodded quickly, her fingers flying over her data pad. Despite the danger, she remained calm, her sharp mind working overtime. Shields are holding at 60%, she reported. But if they hit us again, we'll lose power to the east sector. Kayla cursed under her breath. Divert energy from non-essential systems. We can't afford to lose another section. As Rachel relayed the command, Daniel noticed something strange. A group of colonists had gathered near the edge of the compound, their faces pale with fear. They weren't running for shelter. They were staring at the horizon. Following their gaze, Daniel saw it. A massive ship descending from the sky, its silhouette blotting out the stars. That's not one of ours, Daniel muttered, his stomach sinking. No, Kayla agreed, her jaw tightening. That's Gorthar's flagship. Daniel had heard stories about Gorthar, the Barbarian's ruthless warlord. He was a legend among his people, a symbol of strength and destruction, but legends didn't usually come crashing into your life uninvited. This wasn't just an attack. It was a declaration of dominance. We need to move, Kayla said sharply. If that ship lands, we're done for. Before anyone could respond, a loud explosion shook the ground beneath their feet. One of the colony's outer walls collapsed, sending debris flying in every direction. Amidst the dust and smoke, figures emerged. Barbarian soldiers clad in rugged armor, wielding weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "They're inside," someone shouted. Panic rippled through the remaining defenders. Kayla barked more commands, rallying her fighters to hold the line. Daniel grabbed Rachel's arm. "Stay close to me," he ordered. "We can't afford to get separated." Rachel nodded, clutching her dataput tightly. "What about you? You're not exactly trained for combat." "I'll manage," Daniel replied grimly. "Just keep doing what you do best. Find us an edge." As the fighting intensified, Daniel found himself thrust into a role he never imagined. He wasn't a soldier, but he couldn't stand idly by while others risked their lives. Picking up a discarded plasma rifle, he fired blindly at the advancing barbarians, hoping to buy his allies some time. Nearby, Kayla fought with fierce determination. Her movements were precise, almost mechanical, as she took down one enemy after another. It was clear she had experience on the battlefield, though Daniel wondered how much of it was born out of necessity rather than choice. Amidst the carnage, a new figure appeared, Ethan Blake. Tall and broad-shouldered, Ethan carried himself with the confidence of someone who had seen too many wars. His dark hair was streaked with gray, and his face bore the scars of countless battles. When he spoke, his voice carried authority. "Who's in charge here?" Ethan demanded, stepping over the body of a fallen barbarian. Kayla turned to face him, her eyes narrowing. "I am. Who are you?" "Ethan Blake," he replied simply. "Mercenary. Heard there was trouble and decided to lend a hand." Kayla hesitated, then gestured toward the ongoing fight. "Fine. Help us push them back, and we'll talk later." Ethan grinned, a hint of amusement in his expression. Fair enough. With Ethan's arrival, the tide of the battle began to shift. He moved like a storm, carving through the barbarian forces with brutal efficiency. Watching him fight, Daniel couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and unease. This man was dangerous, not just to the enemy, but possibly to everyone around him. Meanwhile, Rachel worked tirelessly to support the defenders. Using her technical skills, she hacked into the colony's surveillance system, identifying weak points in the barbarians. Advance. Her insights allowed Kayla's team to anticipate attacks and counter them effectively. "East corridor is clear," Rachel announced, her voice rising above the din. "But they're regrouping near the south gate." Kayla nodded, relaying the information to her fighters. "Hold the east. Push them toward the gate." As the defenders rallied, Daniel noticed something troubling. The barbarians weren't just attacking randomly. They were targeting specific locations: power stations, communication hubs, supply depots, all vital to the colony's survival. Whoever was leading this assault knew exactly what they were doing. "They're trying to cripple us," Daniel realized aloud. "Not destroy us." Kayla overheard him and nodded grimly. "Gorthar wants us alive, for now. He'll use us as leverage against Earth." The thought sent a chill down Daniel's spine. If Gorthar succeeded, Haven 7 would become a bargaining chip in a much larger conflict. And Daniel knew Earth wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice the colony if it meant protecting itself. Desperation fueled the defenders as they fought to repel the invaders. Slowly but surely, they pushed the barbarians back, reclaiming lost ground. But the cost was high. Bodies littered the streets, both friend and foe alike. The air smelled of smoke and blood, a grim reminder of the price of resistance. In the midst of the chaos, Ethan approached Kayla. "We can't hold them forever," he said bluntly. "We need a plan." Kayla glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "You got any ideas?" Ethan pointed toward Gorthar's flagship. "Take out their leader, and the rest will fall apart. No army fights without a head." Kayla considered his words, then turned to Daniel. "Can your people disable that ship?" Daniel hesitated. "Maybe, but it won't be easy." "Then make it happen," Kayla snapped. "We'll cover you." Before Daniel could protest, Ethan stepped forward. "I'm coming with you. 2 heads are better than 1, and I've got experience with sabotage." Rachel chimed in, her voice firm despite the fear in her eyes. "And I'm coming too," You'll need someone to handle tech stuff. Kayla looked at the trio, her expression softening slightly. All right, go. But don't get yourselves killed. We're counting on you. With that, Daniel, Rachel, and Ethan set off toward the heart of the colony, where Gorthar's flagship loomed like a shadow of doom. As they navigated the ruined streets, dodging patrols and avoiding detection, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into a trap. But what choice did they have? If they failed, Haven 7 would fall, and with it, any hope of peace. The journey was fraught with tension. Every sound made them flinch. Every movement in the darkness set their nerves on edge, yet somehow they pressed on, driven by a shared determination to stop Gorthar before it was too late. When they finally reached the base of the flagship, Rachel knelt beside a control panel, her hands trembling as she worked to bypass its security protocols. Almost there, she whispered, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Ethan kept watch, his weapon ready. Hurry up. We don't have much time. Daniel scanned their surroundings, his mind racing. This mission was insane. A suicide run disguised as a desperate gamble. But as he looked at Rachel and Ethan, he realized something important. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something bigger, a chance to prove that humanity could rise above its divisions and stand united against a common enemy. Finally, Rachel let out a triumphant gasp. Got it! The shield's down! Good work, Ethan said, giving her a rare smile. Now let's finish this. Together they boarded the flagship, stepping into the unknown. The interior was dimly lit, its corridors lined with menacing symbols etched into the walls. It felt like entering the belly of a beast, one that was waiting to devour them whole. As they ventured deeper into the ship, Daniel couldn't help but wonder if they were making a terrible mistake. But there was no turning back now. The fate of Haven 7, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The interior of Gorthar's flagship was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos raging outside. Daniel Carter, Rachel Moore, and Ethan Blake moved cautiously through its shadowy corridors, their footsteps echoing softly against the metallic walls. The air smelled faintly of oil and smoke, and the dim red lights overhead cast long, distorted shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. Rachel clutched her datapad tightly, her eyes darting between the screen and their surroundings. We're close, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The command center should be just ahead. Ethan nodded, his weapon raised and ready. Stay sharp. If Gorthar's as smart as they say, he'll have guards everywhere. Daniel didn't respond. His mind was racing, trying to piece together how they would take down one of the most feared warlords in the galaxy. He wasn't a fighter like Ethan, or a tech genius like Rachel. He was a diplomat, used to solving problems with words rather than weapons. Yet here he was, sneaking aboard an enemy ship, preparing to face off against a man who thrived on destruction. As they rounded a corner, the group froze. Two barbarian soldiers stood guard outside a reinforced door, their armor gleaming dully in the low light. They were large and heavily armed, their presence intimidating even from a distance. We can't fight them head-on, Ethan murmured, glancing at Daniel. Any ideas? Rachel tapped furiously on her datapad. Let me try something. She connected her device to a nearby terminal, her fingers flying over the keys. After a few tense moments, the lights flickered, plunging the corridor into darkness. What did you do? Daniel asked, keeping his voice low. Shorted out the power. Grid for this section, Rachel replied, a hint of pride in her tone. It should only last a minute or two, but it might give us enough time to get past them. Ethan grinned. Nice work, kid. Taking advantage of the distraction, the trio slipped past the confused guards and reached the reinforced door. Rachel quickly set to work bypassing its security system while Ethan kept watch, his weapon trained on the now recovering soldiers. Hurry up, Ethan urged, his voice tight with urgency. They're getting organized. I'm going as fast as I can, Rachel shot back, her hands trembling slightly under the pressure. Finally, the door hissed open, revealing a massive chamber filled with advanced technology and glowing control panels. At the center of it all stood Gorthar himself. The warlord was larger than life, taller and broader than any of the soldiers they had encountered so far. His skin was scarred, his eyes cold and calculating. He turned slowly to face the intruders, a cruel smile spreading across his face. Well, Gorthar rumbled, his voice deep and menacing. What do we have here? Pests crawling into my ship? Ethan stepped forward, his weapon aimed squarely at Gorthar. Your reign ends tonight. Gorthar laughed, the sound echoing ominously through the chamber. You think you can stop me? You're nothing but insects compared to my strength. Rachel ignored the taunt, focusing instead on locating the ship's main systems. If she could disable the flagship's engines or weapons, it might buy Kayla and the others enough time to turn the tide of the battle below. Daniel, meanwhile, tried to reason with Gorthar. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed. Stand down, and we can negotiate. Negotiate? Gorthar interrupted, his laughter cutting off abruptly. I don't negotiate with weaklings. My people rule through chaos and power. That is how humanity will evolve. You're wrong, Daniel countered, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. Humanity survives because we unite, not because we destroy each other. Gorthar's expression darkened. Enough talk. With surprising speed, he lunged toward Ethan, knocking the weapon from his hands and sending him sprawling to the floor. Rachel gasped, her attention momentarily diverted from her task. Ethan, I'm... Fine, Ethan growled, scrambling to his feet. But Gorthar was already advancing, his massive fists swinging wildly. Ethan dodged and struck back, but every blow seemed to bounce harmlessly off the warlord's thick armor. Seeing her friend struggling, Rachel refocused on her work, her fingers moving faster than ever. She located the ship's core systems and initiated a shutdown sequence. A loud alarm blared throughout the chamber, accompanied by flashing red lights. What are you doing? Gorthar roared, turning his attention to Rachel. Before he could reach her, Daniel stepped in front of her, blocking his path. Leave her alone, Gorthar sneered. You dare stand against me, foolish human? He swung his fist, catching Daniel squarely in the chest. The impact sent Daniel flying backwards, slamming into a nearby console. Pain exploded through his body, but he forced himself to stay conscious, clutching his side as he struggled to breathe. Daniel! Rachel cried, panic rising in her voice. I'm okay, Daniel wheezed, though his words lacked conviction. Finish. Finish what? You're doing. With renewed determination, Rachel completed the shutdown process. The flagship shuddered violently, its systems beginning to fail. Alarms wailed louder and sparks flew from damaged equipment. You've doomed yourselves, Gorthar bellowed, his rage palpable. He charged toward Rachel, intent on stopping her. But Ethan intercepted him, tackling the warlord to the ground. The two men grappled fiercely, their movements fueled by desperation and hatred. Despite Gorthar's size and strength, Ethan fought, with relentless ferocity, refusing to give up. Finally, with a powerful kick, Ethan managed to knock Gorthar off balance. Seizing the opportunity, he grabbed a fallen piece of debris and brought it crashing down on the warlord's head. Gorthar collapsed, unconscious but still breathing. Breathing heavily, Ethan staggered to his feet. Is it done? Rachel nodded, tears streaming down her face. The ship's disabled. It won't be able to attack Haven 7 anymore. Daniel groaned, pulling himself upright with great effort. Then let's get out of here before it crashes. The trio made their way back, through the crumbling flagship, the structure groaning ominously around them. Outside, the battle had shifted. Without the support of their leader's ship, the barbarian forces began to retreat, their morale shattered. Kayla and her remaining fighters regrouped, cheering as they realized the tide had turned in their favor. When Daniel, Rachel, and Ethan emerged from the wreckage, Kayla approached them, her expression a mixture of relief and disbelief. You did it, she said simply, her voice tinged with awe. You stopped him. Daniel shook his head. We couldn't have done it without your help or yours, he added, looking at Ethan and Rachel. Kayla studied them for a moment, then nodded. Maybe there's hope for Earth yet. As the survivors, began the long process of rebuilding. Daniel reflected on everything that had happened. Peace had been fragile, but war had answered when it collapsed. And though the road ahead would be difficult, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity's strength lay not in its divisions, but in its ability to come together when it mattered. Most for now, Haven 7 was safe. But as the stars twinkled above, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was only just beginning. The aftermath of the battle left Haven 7 in ruins. Smoke still rose from the damaged structures, and the air carried the sharp tang of burned metal and ash. Survivors wandered through the wreckage, their faces etched with exhaustion and grief. Some tended to the wounded, while others worked to clear debris and salvage what little remained. It was a grim scene, but amidst the devastation, there was also a sense of relief. Gorthar's flagship had been disabled, and his forces had retreated. For now, the colony was safe. Daniel Carter sat on a pile of rubble near the edge of the compound, staring at the horizon. His body ached from the beating he'd taken aboard the flagship, but it was the weight of everything else that truly burdened him. He had come to Haven 7 as a diplomat, hoping to broker peace. Instead, he found himself fighting for survival alongside people he barely knew. The line between negotiation and combat had blurred, leaving him unsure of where he stood or what came next. Rachel Moore approached him, her datapad tucked under one arm. She looked tired, her face smudged with dirt, but her eyes were bright with determination. "How are you holding up?" she asked, sitting beside him. Daniel managed a weak smile. "I've been better. What about you?" "I'm fine," Rachel replied quickly, though her voice betrayed the strain she felt. "Just processing everything." They sat in silence for a moment, watching as colonists worked to rebuild. The sight was both heartbreaking and inspiring, proof that even after such destruction, people could find the strength to start over. Kayla Stone joined them shortly after, her expression unreadable. She had lost many of her fighters during the battle, and the scars of leadership weighed heavily on her shoulders. Still, she carried herself with quiet dignity, refusing to let despair take hold. "We need to talk," Kayla said, breaking the silence. "All of us." Daniel nodded. "Agreed. Where do we start?" "With trust," Kayla replied firmly. "You risked your lives to help us, and we owe you for that. But if we're going to move forward, we need to be honest about what happened and what comes next." Ethan Blake appeared a few moments later, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something more subdued. He had played a crucial role in defeating Gorthar, yet the victory seemed hollow to him. As he took a seat beside the others, he glanced at Kayla. "You've got questions. Ask them." Kayla didn't hesitate. "Why did you come here? You're not just some random mercenary looking for work." Ethan sighed, leaning back against the rubble. "No, I'm not. I heard rumors about Barbarian activity near Haven 7 and figured it might lead to trouble. Thought I could make a difference for once. For once?" Daniel asked, raising an eyebrow. Ethan hesitated before answering. "Let's just say my past isn't exactly clean. I've done things I'm not proud of. This was my chance to balance the scales." Rachel studied him carefully, sensing the pain behind his words. "We all have regrets," she said softly. "What matters is what we do now." Ethan gave her a small nod of gratitude. "Thanks for that." Turning back to Kayla, Daniel spoke up. "What about you? Why did you keep those encrypted messages secret? Were you working with the Barbarians?" Kayla stiffened, her jaw tightening. "No, I wasn't, but I won't lie, I considered it. After years of being ignored or dismissed by Earth, I thought maybe aligning with someone stronger would give us a voice. In the end, I couldn't go through with it. Not when I saw what they really wanted. And what did they want?" Rachel. "Pressed. Chaos," Kayla answered simply. "Gorthar didn't care about alliances or treaties. He wanted to crush anyone who stood in his way until only his vision of humanity remained." The group fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. The truth was complicated, messy even. There were no clear heroes or villains, only flawed individuals trying to survive in a broken world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Daniel finally spoke. If we're going to rebuild, we need to do it together. No secrets, no lies, just honesty and cooperation. Kayla met his gaze, searching for sincerity. Finally, she nodded. All right, we'll try it your way, for now. The days that followed were filled with hard work and difficult decisions. Kayla focused on restoring order within Haven 7, assigning tasks to her people based on skill and need. Engineers repaired critical infrastructure, medics tended to the injured, and scouts patrolled the perimeter to ensure no new threats emerged. Meanwhile, Rachel used her technical expertise to restore communication systems, allowing Haven 7 to reconnect with the outside world. Daniel spent much of his time documenting the events leading up to the attack. He knew Earth's Central Council would demand answers, and he wanted to present a clear picture of what had happened and why Haven 7 deserved support rather than punishment. One evening, as Daniel reviewed his notes, Rachel joined him in the makeshift command center. Still writing your report? She asked, handing him a cup of water. Yeah, Daniel replied, taking a sip. It's important that Earth understands the truth. If they don't, this whole thing could happen again. Rachel frowned. Do you think they'll listen? I hope so, Daniel admitted. But politics has a way of complicating things. Before Rachel could respond, Ethan entered the room, his expression serious. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Daniel asked, setting aside his datapad. Ethan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Scouts spotted ships approaching from the outer rim. They're not barbarian vessels, but they're not friendly either. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Who are they? No idea, Ethan replied. But they're moving fast. And they're armed. Kayla arrived moments later, having received the same report. This changes things, she said grimly. We're not ready for another fight. Maybe we won't have to fight, Daniel suggested. If we can establish contact, we might be able to negotiate. Kayla shook her head. Negotiating takes time. Time we don't have. Rachel stepped forward, her mind already racing. What if we use the same trick we used on Gorthar's ship? Disable their systems remotely? It's risky, Ethan warned. If they catch on, they'll retaliate. But it's our best shot, Rachel insisted. We've done it before. We can do it again. After a brief discussion, the group decided to act. While Kayla prepared her people for potential conflict, Rachel worked tirelessly to intercept the incoming ship's signals. With Ethan's help, she identified vulnerabilities in their systems and devised a plan to exploit them. As the ships drew closer, tension mounted. Colonists gathered in shelters, bracing for the worst. Daniel stood beside Kayla, watching the horizon with a mixture of hope and dread. They're almost in range, Rachel reported, her voice steady despite the pressure. Initiating shutdown sequence now. Seconds ticked by like hours. Then, one by one, the ships began to falter. Their engines sputtered, and their weapons powered down, rendering them harmless. It worked, Rachel exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. Cheers erupted among the defenders, but Kayla remained cautious. Don't celebrate yet. Whoever they are, they'll send reinforcements. You're right, Daniel agreed. We need to prepare for the long haul. In the weeks that followed, Haven 7 transformed. The colony grew stronger, its people united by shared hardship and triumph. Kayla embraced Daniel's vision of cooperation, reaching out to other colonies to form alliances. Together, they began, laying the groundwork for a new era of unity, one built on mutual respect rather than fear. Ethan chose to stay on Haven 7, finding purpose in protecting those he had once sought to exploit. Rachel continued to innovate, using her skills to improve the colony's defenses and infrastructure, and Daniel, though eager to return to Earth, delayed his departure to ensure Haven 7's recovery was on solid footing. As he stood beneath the stars one final night, Daniel reflected on how far they had come. Peace had collapsed under the weight of mistrust and violence, but war had answered, not with destruction but with resilience and hope. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was capable of greatness when pushed to its limits. The road ahead would be challenging, and the threat of the Barbarian still loomed large, but for the first time in a long time, Daniel believed they had a fighting chance. The days passed slowly on Haven 7, each one bringing new challenges and tests of endurance. Though the immediate threat had been neutralized, the scars of battle lingered, both on the colony itself and in the hearts of its people. The buildings that hadn't been destroyed were patched up hastily, their metal walls dented and scorched. Streets once bustling with life now carried an air of caution, as if everyone expected another attack at any moment. Daniel Carter stood near the edge of the colony, watching a group of workers repair a damaged communication tower. His mind was elsewhere, drifting back to the events that had unfolded over the past weeks. They had survived Gorthar's assault and managed to disable the mysterious ships that followed. But Daniel knew these victories were only temporary. The barbarians weren't gone, they were regrouping. And when they returned, they would come stronger, angrier, and more determined than ever. Rachel Moore approached him, her boots crunching softly against the dusty ground. She carried a datapad under one arm, its screen glowing faintly in the dim light of early morning. "Morning," she said, offering a small smile. "How are you holding up?" Daniel shrugged, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. "I've seen better days. What about you? Still working on those reports?" "Yeah," Rachel replied, glancing down at her datapad. "Trying to document everything we've learned so far. If Earth doesn't understand the full picture, they'll make the same mistakes again." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, but I worry they won't listen even then. Politics has a way of twisting facts to fit agendas." Rachel sighed, leaning against the railing beside him. "Sometimes it feels like no matter how hard we try, the odds are stacked against us." Ethan Blake joined them moments later, his tall frame silhouetted against the rising sun. He looked less like the hardened mercenary he once was and more like someone who had found a sense of purpose. "You two look like you're plotting something," he remarked, his tone lighter than usual. "Just thinking," Daniel admitted. "About what happens next." Ethan's expression darkened slightly. "Next is going to be ugly. Gorthar may be out of the picture, but whoever takes his place won't go easy on us." Kayla Stone appeared shortly after, her presence commanding as always. She carried herself with quiet authority, though the lines of exhaustion around her eyes betrayed the strain she felt. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but firm. "All of us." The group gathered in the command center, which had been partially restored since the battle. Holographic displays flickered above a large table, showing maps of Haven 7 and surrounding sectors. Kayla wasted no time getting to the point. "The barbarians aren't done with us," she began, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Their retreat wasn't surrender, it was strategy. They'll regroup, find new allies, and come back stronger. We need to be ready." Daniel leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Do we know where they've gone? Any leads on their movements?" "Not yet," Kayla admitted. "But our scouts are keeping watch. For now, our priority is strengthening our defenses and securing resources. If we can hold out long enough, maybe we can buy ourselves some breathing room." Rachel spoke up, her voice tinged with urgency. "What about Earth? Can't they send reinforcements? Ships, weapons, anything?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "It's complicated. The Central Council is divided on how to handle this situation. Some see Haven 7 as expendable, a distant colony not worth the risk. Others recognize the threat the barbarians pose to all of humanity. Until they reach a consensus, we're on our own." Ethan let out a low whistle. "Great. So we're fighting blind and outnumbered. We've faced worse," Kayla countered sharply. "And we've survived. That means something." Her words hung in the air, a reminder of the resilience they had shown in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet resilience alone wouldn't be enough to stop the barbarians when they returned. Everyone in the room understood that. Over the next few days, preparations intensified. Workers fortified the colony's walls, adding extra layers of plating and installing automated turrets along key entry points. Engineers worked tirelessly to upgrade power systems and ensure critical infrastructure could withstand another attack. Meanwhile, Kayla organized training sessions for volunteers, teaching them basic combat skills and defensive tactics. Rachel threw herself into her work, using her technical expertise to improve Haven 7's surveillance network. She set up drones to patrol the skies and programmed sensors to detect unusual activity in nearby space. Her efforts earned her praise from both Kayla and Ethan, who began to rely on her insights more and more. Daniel, meanwhile, focused on diplomacy, or what little of it remained. He sent regular updates to Earth, pleading for support while emphasizing the gravity of the situation. Though responses were slow and often vague, he refused to give up hope. Humanity's survival depended on unity, and Haven 7 was proof that cooperation could overcome even the greatest challenges. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the group convened in the command center to review their progress. Kayla studied the holographic map intently, her fingers tracing potential weak points in their defenses. "We're doing everything we can," she said finally, "but it might not be enough." "There's always a chance," Ethan replied, his voice calm but resolute. "As long as we keep fighting, there's a chance," Rachel nodded in agreement. "And we're smarter now. We've learned from our mistakes." Daniel added, "If we can rally other colonies to our side, we stand a better chance. Strength in numbers." Kayla considered his suggestion, then turned to Rachel. "Can you reach out to nearby settlements? See if they're willing to join forces?" "I'll try," Rachel promised. "But it won't be easy. Many of them are scared. And rightly so. They have every reason to be," Kayla acknowledged. "But fear won't save them. Only action will." Days turned into weeks and the pace of work never slowed. Slowly but surely, Haven 7 transformed into a fortress, its people united by a shared goal: survival. Morale improved as colonists saw tangible results from their efforts, and a renewed sense of hope began to take root. Then, one fateful night, alarms blared throughout the colony. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Scouts reported movement in deep space, dozens of ships larger and more advanced than anything they had faced before. "They're here," Kayla announced grimly, addressing the assembled defenders. "This is it. Whatever happens next, remember why we're fighting: for our homes, our families, and our future." As the Barbarian fleet descended upon Haven 7, the defenders braced themselves for the coming storm. Their preparations had given them a fighting chance, but no amount of planning could fully prepare them for the fury of the enemy. Rachel monitored the incoming ships from the command center, her hands trembling slightly as she relayed coordinates to the fighters. "They're spreading out," she shouted. "Target their lead vessels." Ethan led a team of volunteers to the front lines, his weapon raised high. "Stay sharp," he yelled. "Don't let them break through." Kayla coordinated the defense, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Hold the perimeter. Reinforce the south gate." Daniel stood beside Kayla, clutching a plasma rifle despite his lack of combat experience. "What can I do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Stay close," Kayla ordered. "We'll need your leadership if things go south." The battle raged on, the defenders holding their ground against overwhelming odds. Explosions lit up the sky, and the sound of gunfire echoed across the colony. Despite the intensity of the assault, the people of Haven 7 fought with courage and determination, inspired by the bonds they had forged in the face of adversity. Amidst the chaos, Rachel spotted something on her screens, a signal emanating from one of the Barbarian ships. It matched the frequency used by Gorthar's flagship during the last attack. "That's their command ship," she exclaimed. "Take it out and the rest will fall apart." Kayla nodded, relaying the information to her fighters. "Focus fire on that ship. Bring it down." With renewed purpose, the defenders concentrated their attacks on the command vessel. Plasma bolts streaked through the sky, striking the massive ship again and again. Finally, with a deafening explosion, the vessel broke apart, sending debris raining down onto the battlefield. The loss of their leader sowed confusion among the barbarians, causing their formation to falter. Seizing the opportunity, Kayla ordered a counterattack. The defenders pushed forward, driving the invaders back step by step until they retreated entirely. When the dust settled, the survivors erupted in cheers, their voices ringing out across the battered colony. Against all odds, they had won. Indy. The aftermath, Daniel reflected on what they had achieved. Peace had collapsed and war had answered, not with destruction, but with unity and perseverance. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was capable of greatness when pushed to its limits. As he gazed at the stars, Daniel knew the fight wasn't over. The barbarians would return, stronger and more dangerous than ever. But for now, Haven 7 stood as a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of resilience and cooperation. And as long as there were people willing to fight for a better future, humanity would endure. The victory at Haven 7 was hard won, but it came at a cost. The colony lay battered and bruised, its streets littered with debris and its people exhausted from days of relentless fighting. Fires still smoldered in some areas, sending trails of smoke curling into the sky. Yet despite the destruction, there was a sense of triumph, fragile, fleeting, but undeniable. They had faced an overwhelming enemy and emerged victorious. Daniel Carter stood near the edge of the colony, watching as survivors worked to clear the wreckage. His body ached from the battle, his muscles sore from carrying heavy equipment and dodging enemy fire. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the weight of responsibility he felt. He had seen firsthand how fragile peace could be, and now he understood that war wasn't just about winning. It was about surviving long enough to rebuild. Rachel Moore approached him, her face streaked with dirt but her eyes bright with determination. She carried her ever-present data pad, though it looked battered after the recent chaos. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "I've been better," Daniel admitted, managing a faint smile. "But we made it through. That's what matters." Rachel nodded, glancing around at the scene before them. "It feels strange, doesn't it? Like, we won, but we're not really safe yet." "You're right," Daniel replied. "The barbarians will regroup. Whoever takes over for Gorthar won't stop until they finish what he started. Ethan." Blake joined them moments later, his expression grim. He had spent the past hour helping tend to the wounded, many of whom were in critical condition. "We got lucky this time," he said bluntly. "Next time we might not be so fortunate." Kayla Stone arrived shortly after, her presence commanding as always. Her armor was scratched and dented, and her usually sharp movements were slower, weighed down by fatigue. Still, she carried herself with quiet strength, refusing to let despair take hold. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firm. "All of us." The group gathered in the command center, which had been hastily repaired after the battle. Holographic displays flickered above the table, showing maps of Haven 7 and surrounding sectors. Kayla wasted no time getting to the point. "This victory isn't permanent," she began, her tone leaving no room for argument. "The barbarians will come back, and when they do, they'll bring everything they've got. We need to prepare for that." Daniel leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Do we know where their forces are regrouping? Any leads on who's leading them now?" "Not yet," Kayla admitted, "but our scouts are keeping watch. For now, our priority is strengthening our defenses and securing resources. If we can hold out long enough, maybe we can buy ourselves some breathing room." Rachel spoke up, her voice tinged with urgency. "What about Earth? Can't they send reinforcements? Ships, weapons, anything?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "It's complicated. The Central Council is divided on how to handle this situation. Some see Haven 7 as expendable, a distant colony not worth the risk. Others recognize the threat the barbarians pose to all of humanity. Until they reach a consensus, we're on our own." Ethan let out a low whistle. "Great. So we're fighting, blind and outnumbered. We've faced worse," Kayla countered sharply. "And we've survived. That means something." Her words hung in the air, a reminder of the resilience they had shown in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet resilience alone wouldn't be enough to stop the barbarians when they returned. Everyone in the room understood that. Over the next few weeks, life on Haven 7 settled into a tense rhythm. Workers labored tirelessly to repair the colony's infrastructure, while engineers upgraded defensive systems to withstand another attack. Kayla organized training sessions for volunteers, teaching them basic combat skills and defensive tactics. Rachel continued to improve the surveillance network, setting up drones to patrol the skies and programming sensors to detect unusual activity in nearby space. Daniel focused on diplomacy, sending regular updates to Earth and pleading for support. Though responses were slow and often vague, he refused to give up hope. Humanity's survival depended on unity, and Haven 7 was proof that cooperation could overcome even the greatest challenges. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the group convened in the command center to review their progress. Kayla studied the holographic map intently, her fingers tracing potential weak points in their defenses. "We're doing everything we can," she said finally, "but it might not be enough." "There's always a chance," Ethan replied, his voice calm but resolute. "As long as we keep fighting, there's a chance." Rachel nodded in agreement. "And we're smarter now. We've learned from our mistakes." Daniel added, "If we can rally other colonies to our side, we stand a better chance. Strength in numbers." Kayla considered his suggestion, then turned to Rachel. "Can you reach out to nearby settlements? See if they're willing to join forces?" "I'll try," Rachel promised, "but it won't be easy. Many of them are scared, and rightly so." "They have every reason to be," Kayla acknowledged, "but fear won't save them. Only action will." Days turned into weeks, and the pace of work never slowed. Slowly but surely, Haven 7 transformed into a fortress, its people united by a shared goal: survival. Morale improved as colonists saw tangible results from their efforts, and a renewed sense of hope began to take root. Then, one fateful night, alarms blared throughout the colony. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Scouts reported movement in deep space, dozens of ships larger and more advanced than anything they had faced before. "They're here," Kayla announced grimly, addressing the assembled defenders. "This is it. Whatever happens next, remember why we're fighting: for our homes, our families, and our future." As the Barbarian fleet descended upon Haven 7, the defenders braced themselves for the coming storm. Their preparations had given them a fighting chance, but no amount of planning could fully prepare them for the fury of the enemy. Rachel monitored the incoming ships from the command center, her hands trembling slightly as she relayed coordinates to the fighters. "They're spreading out," she shouted. "Target their lead vessels." Ethan led a team of volunteers to the front lines, his weapon raised high. "Stay sharp," he yelled. "Don't let them break through." Kayla coordinated the defense, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Hold the perimeter. Reinforce the south gate." Daniel stood beside Kayla, clutching a plasma rifle despite his lack of combat experience. "What can I do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Stay close," Kayla ordered. "We'll need your leadership if things go south." The battle raged on, the defenders holding their ground against overwhelming odds. Explosions lit up the sky, and the sound of gunfire echoed across the colony. Despite the intensity of the assault, the people of Haven 7 fought with courage and determination, inspired by the bonds they had forged in the face of adversity. Amidst the chaos, Rachel spotted something on her screens, a signal emanating from one of the Barbarian ships. It matched the frequency used by Gorthor's flagship during the last attack. "That's their command ship," she exclaimed. "Take it out and the rest will fall apart." Kayla nodded, relaying the information to her fighters. "Focus fire on that ship. Bring it down." With renewed purpose, the defenders concentrated their attacks on the command vessel. Plasma bolts streaked through the sky, striking the massive ship again and again. Finally, with a deafening explosion, the vessel broke apart, sending debris raining down onto the battlefield. The loss of their leader sowed confusion among the barbarians, causing their formation to falter. Seizing the opportunity, Kayla ordered a counterattack. The defenders pushed forward, driving the invaders back step by step until they retreated entirely. When the dust settled, the survivors erupted in cheers, their voices ringing out across the battered colony. Against all odds, they had won. In now. The aftermath, Daniel reflected on what they had achieved. Peace had collapsed and war had answered, not with destruction, but with unity and perseverance. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was capable of greatness when pushed to its limits. As he gazed at the stars, Daniel knew the fight wasn't over. The barbarians would return, stronger and more dangerous than ever. But for now, Haven 7 stood as a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of resilience and cooperation. And as long as there were people willing to fight for a better future, humanity would endure. The stars twinkled above, cold and distant, but Daniel found comfort in their light. Each star represented a world, a colony, or a dream waiting to be realized. The road ahead would be difficult, and the scars of war would linger for generations. But as long as humanity remembered what it meant to stand together, there was hope. For now Haven 7 was safe, and sometimes that was enough.